the Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. To find out where to buy gold and silver reliably at great prices, go get your free Financial Survival Toolkit at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. You'll also get our complimentary newsletter. This is the Financial Survival Network.
1490 WGCH. This is Kerry Lutz, and you're listening to the Financial Survival Network, which is brought to you by Miles Franklin. They've been in business selling gold and silver for over 20 years, and I'm a customer because when you buy, they ship. For more information, find them on the web at milesfranklin.com or give them a call at 800-822-8080 and get a free quote. The future, where the country's heading, how you're going to survive, how you're going to make ends meet, it's all going to come down to communities. And right now, I'm part of a community. I have Chris Duane, the Silver Shield, on the line. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Gary, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
We got Brother John F. John, how are you?
Doing great, Kerry.
Great. And we've got Sean of the SGT Report. How are you, Sean?
Hey, Kerry, really great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, well, all of you, thanks for being on, because as this thing progresses, more and more people are becoming aware, or if they're not aware yet, they're getting a really uneasy feeling, kind of like you leave your house in the morning, you go to work, and then when you're on your way home, you're not sure if that house is still going to be there when you get back. And I think that's what people are feeling right now. And that's what we need to address because, you know, since we last talked, guys, which was a couple months back, things appear to have gotten markedly worse. And in keeping with each of your views about the decline of the Western monetary paradigm, I felt we should get together again and talk about this. And Chris, first to you, there are so many too big to fail entities around the world now. We keep producing more and more of them. Do you agree that they're going to start failing in the next phase of this collapse? And who do you think is going to go first?
Well, if we look at the progression of what's happened, if you guys remember long-term capital management, that was one of the first major hedge funds out there that just really thrived off of leverage. They had 2 Nobel laureates that were on the firm, just the best of the best guys, and they all used tons of leverage to I think take $1 billion and leverage it up to $1 trillion worth of derivatives and all this other stuff. And if you remember, I read one of the books about that. That single firm threatened to take down the entire Western, banking system because of the amount of leverage and counterparty risk that they produced. That was solved in a back office deal at the Federal Reserve with the head of all the Wall Street institutional heads, and they all agreed to, wash out each other and put in cash just to save the game. Okay, flash forward 2008. Now it's those same institutions that bailed out long-term capital management that were threatening to take down the entire Western system. What ends up happening? Federal Reserve and the Treasury get together, bail them out, and keep the game going. The counterparty risk has now been transferred up to sovereign nations, and in this time around, the role of Lehman Brothers will be played by Greece. The role of AIG will be played by the United States. The role of, General Motors, Spain. They're national problems now, and there is no bigger failure. There's no larger system to absorb the fail. And this time around, it's it. There's no kicking the can down the road. There's no higher ups because we have blown through all of our safety nets in 2008. People have been unemployed for 4 years. People have burned through their 401ks, their IRAs. They have no home equity. Their jobs have been cut. Their hours have been cut. Their benefits have been cut. There's no safety net left. People don't trust either party. I said at the beginning of this year, the 2012 election is going to be the least important election ever. No matter who gets into office, we are going to have more debts, more wars, more nastiness, and none of these things will end until all the debt in all the world is expunged.
Right.
And the way that we get there, it's a hard, nasty road, but there will be no recovery until all this debt is wiped from the earth.
Yep. Hey, you're definitely onto something. And Sean, what's your feeling with all these too big to fails? Are they all going to fail at once, or are we going to see one of them, like a BOA, hypothetically, or a Deutsche Bank, or a European bank, or a few of them? What's your take on the world economy and which too big to fail is going to have to fail next?
Well, you know what, you guys, I think, if you step back and you look at this situation and you're looking for a metaphor, I think that Walking Dead show on what channel is that on? What network is The Walking Dead on? AMC? I think that's a great metaphor for what we are now literally facing. The international banks are walking dead. Do we even know what J.P. Morgan's real losses are now? Is it $2 billion, $5, $7, $20 billion? I don't think anybody really even knows. Nation states are walking dead. Greece, Ireland, Spain, the entire Eurozone, really. The UK is on the brink. I think as you look around, the walking dead is a great metaphor for what we're facing internationally with both the banks and nations whose sovereignty is completely at risk and under threat by groups like the IMF, the Bank of International Settlements. And then literally we're seeing the walking dead. We're seeing these reports of people on these synthetic drugs eating the faces off of other people, eating the flesh of dogs. There's a story that's going up on SGT Report later about a man who attacked the family dog. He was on the synthetic drug K2, and he ate the family dog. I mean, it makes one wonder if these quote-unquote agencies, CIA and others, you fill in the blank, are behind the creation of these synthetic drugs that are now literally causing people to behave like flesh-eating zombies. It's truly the zombie apocalypse, and I feel like there's been a lot of predictive programming, both on television with shows like The Walking Dead, and, on a wider scale in the media as they embrace these stories and we're shoved this zombie paradigm down our throats. It really makes you wonder, because I've been on this planet now for over 40 years, and I've never seen anything like this. I've never heard, short of Jeffrey Dahmer, I've never heard of people eating other people, right, in a zombie-like drug-induced state. What is going on here? I mean, to Chris's point on the pre-call, and we'll get into this community building, which he's all about, and I sure appreciate that, is, the fact is that what's going on? Things aren't even that bad yet, in this country, and we're seeing people lose their minds. It really scares you for what's coming, because if things melt down and the grid goes down, we are all going to be in really dire straits, and that's when you want to surround yourself with terrific, like-minded people who care about liberty and understand, what we need to do in order to survive, possibly a worst-case scenario, which I think is probably coming, and I wish it wasn't.
Yeah, we agree on that one. And John, what's your feeling? Too big to fail, and what's the next domino that's going to fall?
Well, they definitely are too big to fail, but I think that there's some that are going to be taken down, and I think, recently indications have been that there's some hints at the fact that J.P. Morgan actually may be the one that's taken down. If you look at what's going on in the Obama administration right now with Eric Holder, there's a lot of people that people would guess are untouchable or unassailable, but it really looks like Holder is he's going to be a fall guy. So it's not unthinkable that some of the biggest players can be fall guys. Now, we've got Chris Powell of GATA being interviewed on CNBC Asia, talking about the gold manipulation. We've got the NASDAQ covering Ted Butler, talking about the silver manipulation. We've got Jamie Dimon being absolutely excoriated in the House. And so I'm thinking that it may be that J.P. Morgan is actually going to be the scapegoat. I mean, the ultimate, in my mind, the ultimate people who are responsible are the politicians. After all, they're the ones who put the bankers in control. But I don't think they're going to point a finger at themselves. I think that they're going to blame the bankers before they blame themselves.
Yeah, it's always a failure of capitalism. The free market's at fault and have to punish them. Not that we have capitalism in the free market, but like you said, the politicians will not take responsibility for the mess that they've certainly been essential in creating. So they're always going to look for the fall guys, just like politicians always do. And we kind of touched upon it, but once that final act of collapse gets started, what do you think the world's going to look like once it's done, John?
Well, the debt definitely needs to be repudiated, and that's going to make a completely different world in and of itself. What that world's going to look like, I don't really know, and I really don't think they know. If you look down through history, there have been many, many empires that have come and gone, and a lot of those empires thought they were the ones that were going to be the world empire. The sun never sets on the British Empire. The Spanish Empire dominated the world. So, there's a long history of empires that have failed, and I think that, as Chris has pointed out before, I think we're really going to see a trend towards decentralization. I think the center isn't going to hold, and ultimately the system is going to begin to decentralize.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because smaller entities, smaller organisms fare better in the real world as long as they don't get eaten by a bigger organism, I guess. So, Chris, what's your feeling about that? What's this world going to look like once the collapse gets started, and then once it's done?
Yeah, my big theme has been massive decentralization of power. So while Alex Jones and all these guys want you to worry about the one world order, I have been going the opposite direction and pointing out to people that we don't need good guys and bad guys to fear or hope that somebody's going to come save us. We need to start taking conscious decisions to take care and take responsibility for ourselves. And when humanity is faced with the consequences of actively or passively supporting a debt and death paradigm, because that's what our entire way of life is based off of, debt and spreading death, we're going to see the consequences of that action. And the people who are become consciously awake and start to get out of that system by taking their fiat money out of the banking system and putting into real tangible assets, to walking away from jobs that don't resonate with them, from getting rid of toxic thoughts and toxic people in their lives, those people are going to fare very well, because they're already going through the hard challenge of what humanity is going to have to go through. So when this system collapses, I've did a video series called The 5 Stages of Awakening. What we are all individually doing is we're going through these 5 stages of awakening now. When humanity goes through it, they're going to go from massive denial into massive anger. And that anger phase is what I am most concerned about. That's when society is going to lose it. Salente's right. When people lose everything, they're going to lose it. And that's what I fear. And the way I see it is the areas that have benefited the most off of or depended upon the debt and death paradigm are going to be the worst places to be. So I did top 5 places not to be when the dollar collapses. But the reality is, if you're in any major urban area, you're surrounded by people who are already aggressive, narcissistic, psychopathic, most likely on antidepressants, totally unprepared, don't have any food, live in an unhospitable area if there's no electricity or water flowing through it, and there's millions of them. I think the urban areas are going to be, you're going to see the most disgusting humanity come out. Right now we have, druggies and zombies walking the street. What's it going to be like when there's no food going into New York City or no electricity? It's going to be a mess. I moved out of New Jersey because of that, and moved out to, the cornfields out here in Ohio. And I'm, thinking about even moving again, even further inland. And I think the urban areas are going to be either Mad Max, where you're going to have, the southern major metropolitan areas turn into absolute war zones with, criminal gangs, and they may never come back. And I think the northern urban areas like New York and Chicago are going to go towards some fascist police state that will make RoboCop look happy. But the rest of the country is not going to be that way. I think the nastiness in the cities is going to scare the rest of the inland areas, the country areas, into some sort of, hey guys, we need to work together. And I use the analogy of, look what happened when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. You had the rapes and robbing and looting and all that other stuff. But when we had the floods in the Midwest, it was marked by neighbor helping neighbor. So I think you're going to see those three realities, the southern urban areas turning into Mad Max zones, the northern urban areas going through the same riots, but eventually have some sort of police state there. And then I think the vast majority of the rest of this huge, wide open country, you're going to see states and communities pop up that are going to start with the basics, the Constitution, honest money, honest people, and I think that you're going to see a movement of the best and brightest to those areas, and that's what I've been preparing for with all the work that I've been doing.
Right. And let's see, Sean, what's your take on this collapse here? Is it Mad Max, or is it people just saying rejecting power and taking control of their own lives, or is there a transition that's going to happen in between those two things?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Chris, and who really knows? Nobody can see the future. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen, but it's my greatest hope that when this system resets, and I don't wish for the dollar paradigm to collapse, right? I feel like I shouldn't wish for it, but I know many of us do because there's so much injustice in the world. You've got Condoleezza Rice now calling for the violent overthrow of Syria, while NATO funds the quote-unquote rebels who are looting Christian churches and brutally murdering people, all in this, orchestrated effort by the world elite to overthrow yet another Middle Eastern country. It's just disgusting. And at the end of the day, if the dollar paradigm and this fiat banking paradigm can collapse in a way that leaves it honorable for the rest of us, meaning that if this evil empire that is running this planet can collapse under its own weight, I truly do believe a better day can come for humanity. That's what I'm hoping for. And we can talk about precious metals as a hedge against a worst-case scenario, and many of us have experienced trolls who will tell us that, silver is only worth what you paid for it, and it's never going to go to $500 or $1,000. I want to point out for everybody that even the elite themselves are now recognizing gold is as good as cash. The Bank of International Settlements notes on its Basel III implementation, Kerry, I know you know this, that
sure.
At national discretion, quote, gold bullion held in its own vaults or on an allocated basis, very important word, to the extent backed by bullion liabilities. It's funny that they all have bullion liabilities, but those gold bullion assets that are allocated can be treated as cash and therefore risk weighted at 0%. I think that's very important for people to understand that even these criminal banks are now talking to each other and saying, hey, your gold is as good and probably better than all this fiat currency. They're struggling, but at the end of the day, I hope the system does melt down and reset so that humanity can rise from the ashes. And like Chris is saying, we can all come together in smaller communities driven by honor and liberty, and let's lift each other up. And in this country, take the republic back. That's what I hope and pray happens.
Yeah, I think that the system is really one the most unjust and exploitative system as it's currently constituted. It obviously took a while to get here. But, the welfare warfare state and the whole way that the bankers are basically, along with the politicians, just stealing all the wealth in the world, it's just the worst of all possible worlds. But on the other hand, we're not rioting in the streets quite yet. I mean, there's certainly signs of civil unrest, and it would be much better to have some type of transition. But how possible that is, we don't know that. But the one thing, guys, that plagues me and really bothers the heck out of me, and I was just in California last weekend, it's no different any place in the country you go. So few people actually get what is happening. And it's got nothing to do with level of education. It's got nothing to do with how well they're doing or how badly they're doing. They just don't want to admit that this thing is collapsing, and they're too busy watching American Idol, eating their junk food, buying flat screen TVs, and running up credit card debt. When do they wake up, John? When are they going to realize what's going on and that they're getting scammed? That's what I want to understand.
Well, they're eventually, when it reaches them, they're obviously going to have to wake up. But, the Anglo-American empire has probably gone farther than anybody could have guessed it would have. The analogy I like to use is the Cold War was Russia and America getting together and dividing the booty of Germany, we'll say. And the United States pretty much decided to go with the mind control model, and the Soviet Union went with the technological model with the moon race and things like that. It seemed that the Soviet Union was going to win the whole deal. But the United States actually probably chose the correct model in that we're now the masters of world mind control. In other words, we can convince people of a reality that isn't really there. So if enough people can break free of that mind control, and of course, in my mind, silver is the key. If they just realize the value of a real asset, then once that happens, the amount is so tiny. I think Jason Hommel has cited the BIS refers to other metal categories as $200 billion. $200 billion dropped on the silver market would just be absolutely insane. So it's all paper, it's fake, but it's supported by a system of mind control. And the only way to break through mind control, of course, is to tell the truth and to have people listen to you. I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That mind control point is a great point, John.
Yep, absolutely. And Sean, what's your feeling about the mind control and making people aware? Because I'm sure you get emails from people just like I do, just like all of us, where they're saying, we realize it's rotten, but what do we do? So, that's really because one revolution starts with one person. A revolution starts with one person's actions, and they spread from there. But this one seems to really have trouble to get going, right, Sean?
Yeah, no, I just completely agree with what John said, and I just wanted to weigh in and say that mind control is exactly what it is. It's brainwashing, and the masses are still completely asleep and enjoying television and to a large degree unhealthy food, and they're all probably overworked and underpaid these days. And if you're raising a family and living paycheck to paycheck, you certainly don't have much time to pay attention to any news, much less the alternative news, which takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of digging to find those good sources that bear fruit. No, I totally agree with what John just said. We are suffering in this culture from a brainwashed mass that will continue to support these wars of aggression as long as they're given an excuse that's palatable to them. And as it relates to a lot of Christians right now, the bad guys are in Syria, looting churches. That makes me mad as hell. We should probably go and do something about that. It's just absolute nonsense, but if there's a glimmer of hope, there's a piece I'm putting on SGT Report later today. CNN has just reported its quarterly numbers, and their primetime ratings are at a 21-year low. We live in a country with 310-plus million people, and on any given evening during primetime hours between 7 and 10 Central Time, CNN has fewer than 500,000 people watching their crummy Mockingbird media channel. So there's the glimmer of hope. Sure, a lot of those people are watching Dancing with the Stars, but a heck of a lot of them are looking to other sources for news and information, and they're turning their backs on the Mockingbird media. And thank God, it's high time.
Absolutely. And Chris, I know you've got thoughts about this. We've talked about people awakening, and you talk about the process that it occurs by, but it's really a slow process. And as one person said to me recently, it's not going to get fast until they have to awaken or die.
Yeah, well, my awakening process has taken me 7 years. I woke up in 2005. I sold my house at the top of the housing bubble, went all in and literally bet the house on silver. Spent the next 3 years trying to convince my baby boomer partners and parents to sell their, multi-million-dollar business at the top. They didn't listen. I left. And then for 3 years, I've been thinking about, okay, my personal failure in waking up people. I went about it much more strategically. In all the work that I've done. My first thing I did was the Sons of Liberty Academy. I mean, that's 4 or 5 years worth of research and 2 years worth of putting that together. It's 48 hours of video lessons. And, that is an awakening in literally 48 hours. And I had an email from a kid the other day, and he goes, wow, what an incredible 2 weeks. Saw one of your videos on YouTube, signed up for the Sons of Liberty Academy, went through that whole thing, joined your Silver Shield report. And my life, he says, the person I was 2 weeks ago isn't anywhere where I am today. And oh, by the way, I'm getting married tomorrow. So I wrote him back. I said that awakening, that process, that quantifying of truth that I put together in the academy and then this YouTube channel. I mean, geez, I got 3.4 million views in 9 months. Putting out these things. The awakening is only as fast as you want it to be. There's, limited amount of truths, a lot of it is repetitive, but the fact is that we need to stop listening to what others are putting into our heads. I did a video called, another, 4 stages of it. You need to first start with detoxifying your mind. We talk about brain control. John was talking about, mind control, humanity, society, consumerism, politics, finance. It's all pumped into your head to put an illusion in there of what an unreality is that benefits the Wizard of Oz. And if you stop listening to what other people want from you and start listening to that small voice inside of you, you realize that your life doesn't need to be, 60-inch plasma TVs and the fanciest car and all that other stuff. And then once you realize that you don't need all that stuff, then you realize you don't have to work as hard. And then all of a sudden your life is a lot easier. And then you can go about getting rid of, once you've gotten rid of the toxic thoughts, get rid of the toxic people in your life. We talked on the pre-call about all the people that are in our lives. They're toxic people. They're people that do not give you joy. They take your energy away. It's draining talking to them. Get rid of them. Walk away from them. I did my entire family and my whole business. I was in a car dealer business. I mean, talk about a shark tank. I was brought up in there, and I walked away from it. Then you need to walk away from your your toxic assets. Any dollar that you have in the system, you're supporting bombs dropping on innocent people, whether whether you can justify it or not. Every dollar that goes into that system, we're supporting the world's largest military that goes out and conquers all the natural resources and other people out there to have our corporations go over there, get unlimited amount of resources at cheap prices, slave labor, to bring huge profits back, for them to go rig the politics and the laws and the markets here at home to further enslave us with debt, and we're the ones that are supporting this. I talked about the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. These guys own the world's central banks. They are powerless. If we stop playing in their game, they're not all powerful. They wouldn't even know what to do if their secretary left them, much less if we all willingly walked away from the system. And it starts with a conscious decision to say no more. I'm not going to live my life like this anymore. All the work that I've been doing is to help speed along that conscious process. Even the Silver Bullet and the Silver Shield, we're all silver aficionados. I've taken that message because to me, silver epitomizes your physical walking away. Once you have an ounce of silver in your hand, you've done so many deprogramming thoughts of all the financial stuff and all that other stuff. And when you have that physical reality in your hand and you realize how precious it is and how what a rebellious act it is, to me, I think it does come back down to silver, not because of its, the financial trading reasons or whatever. It's because it's a rebellious act. And that's what the Silver Bullet and the Silver Shield's been about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's obvious that until people feel the need and understand that what they're doing now really isn't working and really isn't serving them, that they're just going to keep doing it. And I think there's different levels that people can kind of check out of the system. Some people are more easily able to do it than others, but everybody can check out at some point, meaning dumping toxic assets, getting things of real value, start building real communities, not these little fake things that center around a coffee shop or a mall. And we all need to start connecting on a much different level than we're doing now. Guys, we got to wrap it up now, but thanks so much for being on. Chris, where do we find you?
I actually just announced I'm not going to be doing my YouTube channel on Sunday. That's the end of that for a while. I'm actually closing down a lot of the public work that I'm doing, and actually moving forward with establishing a virtual community inside my Silver Shield report. So I'm going to have this virtual meeting online with the WebEx or whatever it is to start bringing together the people who do want to create a physical community, and all the work that I've been doing is to help establish the intellectual foundation, grab all these people together and say, hey, what can't we do? Because I tell you what, the listeners, the group, the people that follow the four of us, this little network of these monetary nerds that somehow stumbled across silver are going to be incredibly powerful in the next paradigm. And I don't think we truly appreciate the work, the network, the trust that we have built up with all of our efforts. And that if we can somehow leverage this or utilize it in the future, I think that we can go about creating a paradigm of the opposite consciousness. We don't need to have a banking system with debt. We don't need to have an indoctrination system in our schools. We don't need to have consumerism. We can create sustainable energy, sustainable housing, and a better way of life, something that we can actually be proud to leave our kids. I wouldn't want to leave them, a car dealership business. I wouldn't want to leave them, a debt on a house. I want to leave them something that I would be proud of, and that's what I'm working towards.
Yeah, sounds good. Hey, John, what about you? Your YouTubes, your commentary, where do we find you?
It's BrotherJohnF.com, or you do BrotherJohnF on YouTube, or just type in Silver for the People on any of the search engines. You'll find them both. All
right. And finally, Sean, what's your site again?
Hey, Kerry, day in and day out at SGTReport.com. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, guys, thank you so much for being on. I think this is a good update, and I'll touch base with you guys towards the end of the summer, because I think a lot of stuff is going to happen really fast, and people aren't going to get what's going on. So all of us, we're going to need to help them understand exactly what's going on.
All right. Thanks, Kerry.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, gentlemen. Bye-bye.
All right, Chris.
All right, man.
You be well. Sean,
right.
Sean, John, thank you all for coming on.
Yeah, thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys. I got to roll. Bye.
Okay. Be good.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.